Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Perth East Council, this 20th day of June. I'd like to call our meeting to order, and if everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. Before we do the agenda, I just want to welcome Jacinda with us tonight. This is her first meeting. She's our new Human Resource Manager. Would you like to say anything? No? Okay. Oh, you lose your shyness after a while. And welcome to Perth East. So we need I know we have one item of new business to add, and that has to deal with the our twinning city in Nearsheim, and Amanda's going to bring that up. So if we could move the agenda as amended.
Excuse me, I would like to make a change to the agenda, if I may.
Pardon?
I'd like to make a change to the agenda, if I may.
And what would you like to do?
I'd like to move 8.5.1 to another meeting, special meeting. So I'll move that.
Okay. Andrew wants to move 8.5.1 to another meeting. Do we have a seconder for that? Hugh? All in favor of that? Against? Defeated. Okay.
Recorded vote, please.
Okay, Councillor McMillan?
Nay.
Councillor Matheson?
Nay.
Councillor McAlpine?
Yay.
Councillor Broadhagen?
Nay.
Deputy Mayor McDermott?
Yay.
And Mayor Agates.
Nay.
So 2 in favor, 4 opposed. So it's defeated.
Okay, is there anything anyone else wishes to do to the agenda? If not, then all in favor of as amended? Carried. Okay, if you have pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now as our meeting goes along. We have 12 items under our consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like pulled? Questions? Seeing none. We do have a motion that says that items 5.1.1 to 5.1.12 is set out on the consent agenda for June 20, 2023, regular meeting of council be received for information, and that the minutes of the Perth East Public Library Board, June 13, 2023, be received for information, and that further that the minutes of June 6, 2023, special council meeting and June 6, 2023, regular council meeting be adopted. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bob, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we do have delegation tonight, and with us tonight is Mr. Paul Seebach, and he's from Seebach and Company, Chartered Professional Accountants. So welcome to Perth East, and the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. Statements. We've also included a report, 2-page report that just shows a little more detail. As you know, this is our first year as auditors, and we appreciate your appointment and your trust. We look forward to working with you. It can be a bit stressful being an auditor for the first time when you go somewhere, but we had a good start. Shortly when we started exchanging information. Had a good start there. We came here the first week of October to do an interim audit, and that went well. And then we came back the first week of March and finished most of the field work here, so that was good too. While we were here, we received complete cooperation. We actually work around here, and they have computers for us that have all access to your Great Plains accounting records, and anything we ask for from Paula or any other departments like fire department or recreation, etc. Everything was provided for, and we appreciate that. So I think all the cooperation made the first year go smoothly, so that was good. A few things about your financial statements. When you look at them, the first thing you'll see, you have a surplus of $3.9 million, which seems like a lot. we're required to produce financial statements per the province guidelines. So one of the big things is that when you do your budget more on a cash basis, you expense capital projects where we depreciate them. So because depreciation is less than the capital, your surplus is higher. We also recognize reserve funds as a distribution of the surplus, but we don't show in and outs as income or expenses. So this year you put over $1 million into reserve. So we don't show that as an expense. So when you actually convert your budget at zero to how we're obligated to produce the financial statements, your budget surplus is $2.8 million. So you're about $1 million over. Last year, you're $2.6 million. You may wonder when I tell you all this, what are all these crazy numbers good for? We all start from the exact same records. We just have different accounting policies that we kind of apply at the end. The audited consolidated financial statements and the FIR are sent to the ministry, and they're kind of how they see you. The ministry that's how they see you financially. Something else during the year, you spent $5.2 million on capital. You budgeted $6 million, so it was good you did that much of the work. Most of the work was done on road work, $2.3 million. You bought new vehicles, $320,000. Spent $290,000 in fire stations, about $1 million on recreation programs, etc. That includes the donated land that was $407,000. Things that weren't completed was the purchase of a fire vehicle and some work at the Shakespeare Works water system. A good thing is your reserves went to $19.4 million this year. That's up $1,072,000. Some of these were planned. Some of these were for projects that weren't completed, but your reserves went up, so that's good. You get provincial and federal gas tax grants. They weren't all spent, so at the end of the year, you had $605,000 at the end of 22 to spend in 2023. But when I do talk about your reserves, the $19.4 million, almost $5.3 million of those reserves are set aside for water and sewer projects, so you can't get your hands on all that money for municipal purposes other than water and sewer. Another good thing, during the year, your debt was $480,000. That's down from $766,000. You made regular debt payments of $286,000. Despite spending $5.2 million in capital, you didn't have to finance any of the work. And one loan was completed, which the payments were $233,000 a year, so that frees up some money. We are your auditors, and at the end of the audit, we issued a clean and unqualified auditor's report. It states that, in our opinion, financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial performance and cash flows of the municipality. I guess the numbers I would go over are the first statement. Our report says financial indicators. It's basically your balance sheet as of December 31st. So I'll quickly go through that. That's kind of like the assets you owned and the things you owed, liabilities at the end of the year. Your bank at the end of the year was $9.2 million. Despite having surpluses, down from 9.8. A big reason there was your receivables were higher, so more people owed you money. And your payables were lower, so you had paid more of your payables. $1.8 million in the general fund. You have GICs, high interest savings accounts, etc. $5.8 million under cash because they're current. And also reserve fund development charges, banks of 1.2. Taxes receivable, $881,000. That's a little lower than last year, about 4% of your overall taxes. $574,000 is current. Receivables are higher. The province owed you more money for drains and grants, particularly the PERC grant with $320,000. Investments, $10.3 million in investments. They're at CIBC, Wood Gundy, One Investment, National Bank. We confirmed all those, so they're all there. Long-term receivables are a little confusing. Those are actually tile drain loans if you forwarded to farmers. They show as an in, but they also show as a debt under municipal debt. Inventory and prepaids, that's mostly your public works, gravel, salts, and prepaid expenses. So $22.5 million of current assets. Last year, 22.9. Most of that is because your bank was lower, because your payables were lower. So things you owed at the end of the year, accounts payable down 5.4 to 3.5. A lot of that was you paid off a security deposit for a subdivision. Deferred revenue, those are grants you've got but you haven't spent yet, $209,000. Deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds, those are what we've talked about. The gas tax is $600,000 and development charges. Municipal debt, $654. That includes the $174 of tile drain loans that were come from the province, but your debt alone is $480,000. Landfill closure, that's a real accounting term. That's the money you need today to close your landfill sites in the future. You have 3 landfill sites, Milverton and Ellis are closed. Southeast Hope is still open. Your engineer prepares that number. So 22 million of assets, 5.8 of liabilities. So your net financial assets, 6.6. That's up $1.5 million from last year. So that's very positive. Capital assets, you kind of talked about that. 63 million, you've added 5.2, and we depreciated 2.7. And then the difference between your assets, liabilities is your surplus, investment, tangible capital assets, basically your assets minus your debt. Unfinanced capital outlays, that's mostly tile municipal drain loans that have started, haven't been funded yet. The landfill closure we've talked about in reserves, 19.4 million. So your total surplus is almost 80 million, up $3.9 million, which due to the miracle of counting is your surplus. Any questions on your balance sheet? The next page of our report is the income statement, and I wouldn't go through all of that. Obviously, you collect taxes, taxation a little higher because of supplementaries, various grants. Your UMP grant, years ago, there was talk UMP grants might go away, fade away, but yours actually went up a bit, so that's good. The gas tax, you did take $426 in income, but didn't spend it all. And various other grants. Things that kind of stand out. Recreation revenues back up. Last year, your arena would have been closed 1 month, January of 2022 versus the year before, closed quite a bit. The drains revenue is higher, but if you go down below, the municipal drains is 900,000, so that makes sense. Other income, license permits is up. You budgeted 800,000, 1.2. That includes the land donation that was valued at $407,000. Investment income, it's up. Interest rates were higher, so you took in 460,000 versus 218,000. Hopefully that's up this year too. So total revenue, 19,056,000. All your expenses are listed. Planning and development was lower, not as much payments to the drain superintendent fees. We've talked about municipal drains being higher, you recovered more, and the transfers, etc. So total revenue of 15 million, the difference between that and your income is $3.9 million. You had budgeted 2.8, last year's 2.7. Any questions on your income statement? If not, I'm not going to go through the whole audited financial statements. As I said, all the information here is exactly the same as here. It's just a little more detail. What I might just point out, there is a note about your investments, the 10.2 are the long-term investments. There is a note about your debt, 480,000 remaining. It was for water and sewage purposes. The other debt was paid off during the year, so basically you have 480,000 in debt, which is really good. The province calculates your debt repayment limits. It's 25% of your revenue, which is $3.3 million. You're basically at 82,000, so that's very good. There's a note about the landfill closure. Later on, near the back, there's a note description of your reserves. It shows how your reserves started at 18.3 million, ended at 19.4. Some of that is through operating surpluses. Some water projects weren't done. Deferred revenue, we've talked about that. Development charges, they went up to 483. And then the two gas taxes, you didn't spend all of it during the year. You can spend that later. They're at 479, 126. There is a schedule for the library board. It has a surplus of almost 19,000. It pretty well went according to what was predicted. And the very end, there's your trust statements. Trust statements are almost all cemeteries that you run and operate whenever there's a grave opening. Some of that money's set aside for the future, and that interest earned from that money set aside is used to provide for the cemeteries. I would say in closing that I think it's a positive year. You ended up better financially than you did at the beginning of the year. You were able to do the $5.2 million of capital work without decreasing reserves or borrowing money. You paid off a loan, and because of all that, you were able to increase your net financial assets by over $1.5 million. Does anyone have any questions on my report or any of the statements? Or
Questions? No, you did a great job. So,
Paul, we audit the statements. Paul in the finance department produces them, so she deserves a lot of credit too. It was her first year, and we audit numbers. I don't audit people, but we're very happy at how everything went.
thank you, Paula, and your department for all that you've done. So, thank you, Mr. Seebach. If there's no questions, we appreciate you coming tonight and giving us I'm losing words here.
Positive report.
Positive report, yes.
No, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, and have a nice night.
Thanks.
Okay, we do have a need for a public meeting. That's next on our agenda. So I have a little blurb here I'm going to read. I declare this public meeting to be open. This public meeting is being held to consider a proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment affecting property currently owned by Reed's Heritage Homes Limited, Blocks 28 and 29, Plan 31T-92001, Milverton Ward, 44 Mill Street West and 54 Mill Street West, Plan 363, Part Lot 416, RP 44R 2796, Part 1. This meeting is an opportunity for the township to advise the public of the purpose and intent of the amendment and receive their input prior to considering the adoption of the implementing bylaw. If a bylaw is adopted to implement the official plan amendment and zoning amendment, a notice of passing will be forwarded by prepaid first-class mail to various agencies of interest and others who have requested notice. An appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal objecting to the adoption of the bylaw may be filed with the clerk not later than the date stated on the notice. Any person attending this meeting who wishes to receive written notice of a bylaw passed to implement the amendment is asked to give their name and mailing address to the clerk following this meeting. No written notice, except as previously noted, will be given unless requested by email following the meeting. All persons attending this meeting will be given an opportunity to be heard or make a presentation. I will now call on our planner, Pune, to present the planning report and recommendations, and Pune is coming with us tonight on the screen.
Thank you, Mayor Getz. Good evening, everyone. I will share my screen with your permission. Okay. All right, very well. Yes, so tonight I'll be presenting to you the Milverton OPA 13 and ZBA 06-2023. The agent Caroline Baker has submitted an official plan amendment to the Milverton official plan and a zoning bylaw amendment to the Perth East zoning bylaw to bring the proposed development into conformity with the Milverton official plan and the Perth East zoning bylaw. The subject site is defined as settlement area as per the provincial policy statement and is within the service urban area in the Perth County official plan. The property is located on the west side of Milverton It has a frontage on Mill Street West and Macbeth Street. The entire site is 7.42 hectares in area. The property is designated highway, commercial, residential, and industrial in the Milverton official plan. The residential development subject to the OPA and ZBA applications are 2.2 hectares in size, and that's shown in yellow. We will now go through the proposed, to go over the approved draft plan of subdivision, which includes the subject site. The draft plan of subdivision was approved on this site in 1993. The lapse date is now extended to June 15, 2025. The original approved draft plan is now modified, and these two applications would address the modification. Lots 25 and 26, shown in green, received conditional approval as per consent application 40-22 last year, and stays with Westbell Communication. The subject site for the purpose of the OPA are blocks 28 and 29. And they are shown on the slide, and it's in the hatched area and is approximately 0.5 hectare in size. The existing designation under the Milverton official plan on this side is highway commercial, and the applicant is proposing to change the designation to residential to allow for residential development. The principal goal of the highway commercial designation is to promote a suitable location for land uses that are generally requiring larger areas, and they are located on the heavily traveled roadways. And the purpose for highway commercial land use is for them to be compatible with surrounding land uses. Now, the residential designation policies of the Milverton official plan, they recognize the variety of residential dwelling types. They aim to enhance the characteristic of the residential environment within the village of Milverton, and to preserve those, they promote the creative design and use of buildings and landscaping in order to permit the mixing of the different types of dwellings without a loss of harmony. And this slide goes over the rezoning application, and that is to change, the purpose is to change the existing zoning of highway commercial zone. There are a few zones, so highway commercial zone, residential low density, and there is an existing R3-2, which is residential high density zone, including the Ladinson Court. So they want to rezone it from these zones to revise R3-2, which is residential high density zone on this block. And it should be noted that the design of this block has changed a little bit. So in the new design, the Ladinson Court is non-existent. The requested special zoning on this site, as I mentioned, is proposed as R3-2, which would include a reduced interior side yard setback of 3 meters versus 6 meters as permitted. And the purpose is to allow for building townhouses on this block. As for the public comments, the planning received a letter from MVCA, Midland Valley Conservation Area, with no comment. And then we received 3 comments from the neighboring residents. One is from Mr. David Schultz, owner of 17 Macbeth Street. He had questions with regards to development and the density. He also wanted to know specifics of the design of the townhouse units. And I believe he's present tonight for the public meeting to ask further questions. Another comment was from Mr. Luke Steinman at 6 Edward Street, and these 2 properties are located on the east side of the block. And I explained to Mr. Simon what the development is intended for, and he wanted to know if there are any zone changes to lots 1 to 15, and I advised that this application does not propose any changes to those lots. And the last comment was from Mr. Paul Mueller, owner of 4710 line 64. And he wanted to advise of the groundwork that is being done on this site. And the planning department emailed him with the relevant information and advised that Perth East is aware of that. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, and my apologies for my voice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone present who wishes to make a presentation or speak in opposition of the application? Okay, if you could please come to the desk and give your name and your address, please.
So first, I just want to say thank you for listening. And I'm Marilyn Schultz from 17 Macbeth Street, which abuts the proposed development on the east side. We understand and appreciate the consideration being given to us as neighbors in reducing the number of dwelling units that abut our property, as well as reducing overall heights. In order to understand the amended proposed site plan, we would like to seek some clarity, as it would mean we share a property with 9 other properties. How many stories will the townhouses to the west of us be? And I don't know if you want me to list all my questions at once or one at a time.
We have the Caroline Baker joining us as well, and she's from the development, so she can maybe help answer the questions. Caroline, are you with us? Oh, right. Sorry, she had to go through my microphone. Caroline, are you with us?
I apologize. Yes, I am here, and I do as well have a presentation when it's the appropriate time, and hopefully I can work to address some of the comments. So certainly taking notes and happy to answer them.
Okay, well, Mrs. Schultz has some questions, so I'll let her ask the questions and we'll work through them. So if you want to give us your first question, and hopefully Caroline can respond.
So how many stories will the townhouses to the west of us be?
Through the mayor, the intent is that all of the units and those that back onto your property will be 1 story in height, being bungalows.
Okay, thank you. That answers my second question already, so I'll delete it. Will there be a fence, and how high will the fence be?
Through the mayor, certainly should the applications be approved, the owners will need to go through site plan approval with the Township of Perth East, and they're certainly open to providing a fence along the mutual property line. And maybe if I can just build on that from a comment I think you made a few moments earlier about sharing 9 property lines with your property. Maybe just for clarification, the proposed development subject to these applications is in the form of a condominium development, meaning it'll be one overall condominium that's managed by a condominium board with units within that condominium. And that condominium is able to maintain any features that might be on mutual property lines, such as a fence.
Okay, thank you. And it would also be helpful to understand what was involved in the previous proposal. It's our understanding there were to be 5 apartment blocks. How many stories would those be if we go with the original plan?
Through the mayor, you are correct. There was 5 blocks on Ladison Court that are currently zoned to permit 4 to 6 apartment unit buildings. The current R3 zoning, I believe, permits a maximum height of 11 meters, which could equate to 3 stories in height.
So is there a plan for that? Is that what it would be or not?
Through the mayor, that is the current zoning that is on the site that existed when Reach Heritage Homes purchased the property. Their intent, certainly through these applications, is not to build the 4 to 6 dwelling units on 5 individual lots that could be multi-story. The purpose of the application before council this evening is to permit the 1-story townhouse bungalows.
Certainly, I understand that. I just wanted to compare the two, so thank you. And there are some mature trees on the property line between us and the proposed development. Is it possible to retain these trees?
Through the mayor, I would be happy to take that away and look at that opportunity.
And then I just have one last concern. We wanted to address a concern about the storm water that accumulates during spring thaw and heavy rain. The storm drain at the end of our driveway is inadequate, and then it floods across the property. So will the water from the field or the development be diverted toward Mill Street in order to alleviate this?
Through the mayor, appreciate that question. As part of the overall comprehensive development on this site, it is a draft plan of subdivision with a number of conditions, including detailed engineering design that is currently underway. Essentially, to summarize the stormwater management or the management of water on the site, the development itself in its entirety is directing its stormwater to a new proposed stormwater management pond that fronts onto Mill Street on the south end of the property. And certainly through best practices of engineering design, it is a principle that any water created from the proposed development needs to be addressed and contained.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes, would like to come up to the desk, please, and give your name and your address?
Hi, I'm Paul Mueller. I live on line 64, 4710, neighboring to that development. As you can see, we will have a few new neighbors. It will bring some challenges, especially for agriculture practices. I have a few questions and comments. As for the proposed changes, I'm opposed to it. It will bring more challenges for us than industrial development. Also, the rezoning for townhouses development bring a lot more activity. What I don't understand is, why is there, before a public meeting, why can they do all the groundwork? They must be convinced that they are going to get the permit for the change. Also, the buildings that are going right against our farm don't have the distance that we would need to have if we built a new barn. I wonder what block 27 is, and the stormwater is a concern for us too. Thank you for listening. That's what I would like to know.
Okay, thank you. Caroline, is there any questions there that you can?
Certainly. No, I'd be happy to answer that. Through the mayor, I'll sort of try and go from the start to the end. And certainly hopefully I can clarify with my presentation. The applications before council this evening relate only to 2.22 hectares of land on the southern portion of the site near Mill Street. The remaining approximately 5 hectares of land are subject to an existing draft plan of subdivision approval that is valid to 2025, and those lots are already zoned. It's the intent of the owners to maintain the existing approved lots that would abut your farm property and maintain the existing zoning that abuts your property. Those are single detached and semi-detached dwelling. They are slightly larger lots, approximately 40 to 45 meters in depth. With respect to comments related to a new barn, the subject property in its entirety is already within the service settlement area of Milverton, and certainly MDS does not apply in this instance. Further to that, I understand the farm property to the north, or a portion of it, the southern portion of your farm property that abuts this lot, is also within the Milverton Ward official plan with designations and zoning for future urban development. If I've certainly missed anything, please let me know.
No, that pretty well answers it. If I could make a comment is about the lagoon, about the wastewater. That lagoon was built about 45 years ago, and with all the building going on, will it be sufficient to handle all the wastewater? And if the town has, or the township has to make changes to it, it could be pretty costly.
And I believe it is big enough. Is that correct, Jake? Maybe can Jake speak to that?
Yeah, if I may, at this point in time, we're obviously assessing additional flows that will be coming to our facility, and we feel comfortable with what we have at the moment based on proposed developments, this one being one of them. There will be changes required for certain in the future to deal with peak flows, but that was something that needed addressed prior to this development. And will be addressed. So
is that for stormwater? Or
that's mostly for wastewater, but stormwater has managed to find its way into our sanitary collection system through various reasons. So there is a factor there. But sanitary, we can deal with the sanitary waste. It's more the stormwater that we're addressing at this point in time. But yeah, we feel comfortable going forward with our current capacity.
but for the two bigger parts of the lagoon, could they not be incorporated more for stormwater? Because they are not for wastewater, as I understand.
The storage isn't really a significant concern. It's actually getting the water there is the biggest issue at the moment that we need to improve, which would be the pumping station itself. So that's where we're looking at improvements at this point. But from an actual capacity standpoint, we feel comfortable bringing this onto our system.
So where will this stormwater go from this area, this building area?
So they have their own stormwater facility there that will capture this, and being all new infrastructure, there should be no water at all coming from storm into our system. It should be sanitary sewage only.
But it will go down the ditch.
They have as far as I understand it, they have a temporary storage facility, and there would likely be an outlet into the municipal drain that runs there.
Is that on lot 27?
Correct. I believe that's correct.
For 27.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks
Okay.
a lot.
All right, thank you. Does the applicant or the applicant's agent have any comments in respect to the application and draft zoning bylaw? Caroline, would you like to speak?
Certainly, no, thank you for the opportunity. If acceptable, would it be all right if I shared a brief presentation?
Sure.
Okay, and I'll try not to duplicate, because certainly you've had a presentation and we've answered some comments from area residents, and certainly happy to answer any questions, council, or further questions from those in the audience. I did just want to take a few minutes to add some additional items from the staff presentation, which was very comprehensive and thorough. Maybe just to backtrack just a little bit. So certainly to introduce myself, my name's Caroline Baker from Baker Planning Group. I'm a registered land use planner, and I've been retained by the owners Reed's Heritage Homes to assist with these applications. I, of course, want to acknowledge there's a comprehensive consulting team, including Stantec Consulting, Traff Mobility, Aeroacoustics, and Blue Metric Environmental. I'm going to skip a little bit so I don't repeat. So I just want to spend a little bit of time on what's happening on the site, because there's three different components, and I know certainly this property has come before council twice in the last year. So as mentioned, this overall site is owned by Reed's Heritage Homes, just over 7.4 hectares. The three components that I alluded to, so the first is that there is an overall draft plan of subdivision approval on the entire site, and included a number of lots and blocks, as well as the extension of Macbeth, which at the time in 1992, when this plan was prepared, it was labeled as James Street, and the new north-south Smith Drive. What you have seen before you to date is a consent application to sever blocks 25 and 26. Currently on the south side of block 26 is Westbell Industries, and they will retain ownership once that consent is perfected of those two blocks. The owners, being Reed's Heritage Homes, are also moving forward with phase one of the draft plan of subdivision. So that'll consist of the extension of the municipal roads, the construction of the stormwater management pond, and 29 units or dwelling units in the form of single detached and semi-detached. They're working well through the draft plan conditions, having submitted detailed engineering design to the municipality. And as noted, there is some preliminary grading works approved by the township currently ongoing on the site. The third component in the matter that's before you this evening is outlined in red, and this is the 2.2 hectares of land that's proposed for a condominium townhouse development. It would see, of course, the removal of the proposed lattice and court and the redesign of those lots. With respect to the development concept on the property subject to the applications, as noted, it's 57 bungalow townhouses. They're generally around 1,000, 1,100 square feet in size. They all would have 2 parking spaces, one in the driveway and one in the garage, as well as access to 29 visitor parking spaces and 4 accessible parking spaces. Overall, this would be a condominium development that would be accessed by a private condominium road that would be managed by the condominium. In this regard, this form of housing provides an opportunity for alternative housing in the community. Being one-story bungalows, there is a greater opportunity for those who wish to age in place. And the condominium form of development allows for ease of maintenance because the condominium can assist with items such as snow removal and lawn care, and would certainly add to the mix in Milverton. I did just want to note a few intentional items on the design presented by Reed's Heritage Homes. Certainly on Macbeth and Smith Street, the dwellings have been oriented to the street to maintain a consistent street pattern. And when we look at the east portion of the site on Macbeth, where it abuts existing development, the units have been oriented in north-south in this location in order to maximize the setback provided to adjacent property, being 7.5 meters. What you'll see on the right are sample images of design precedents from the owner that they have built in the past. I believe you've seen this image. This is just the overall context, showing the red being the severed, the blue is the plan of subdivision, and the yellow is before you this evening. I did want to spend a few minutes on the work that was completed to support and justify the proposed applications. Certainly a summary has been provided of those amendments. I want to spend some time on the supporting technical studies. A portion of the proposed development is intended to be redesignated from highway commercial to residential. And given that this portion of land is proximate to existing industrial uses, the owner prepared both a noise impact study and air emission studies. Both of these studies came back that residential development could be located on this property and meet the Ministry of the Environment requirements for both air contaminants and noise. And as noted with discussions with area residents, there is a functional servicing report that has demonstrated sufficient capacity to service the development. And lastly, a traffic impact study was prepared that demonstrated that the overall density proposed on the site and the various components can be accommodated with no required road improvements. I believe I've touched on land use compatibility, but certainly in designing the development and the studies, there was regard for the industrial to the west and the residential to the east to ensure that matters related to noise and air were addressed, as well as land use compatibility for privacy and minimizing overlook to existing residential uses. And lastly, I just wanted to comment on the official plan amendment. There is a portion about 0.5 hectares proposed to be redesignated from highway commercial to residential. It's our understanding that these blocks historically were highway commercial. They were intended to serve as a buffer from the existing industrial and the proposed residential at the time that this plan was proposed in 1992. However, with the detailed technical studies that were completed as part of this application, it's been demonstrated that this buffer is in fact not required to meet the guidelines from the province to ensure land use compatibility. The second component we looked at in our justification is the removal of highway commercial land, and the Milverton Ward official plan sets out that highway commercial is intended for large users clustered in groups that have convenient access. These are two quite small highway commercial blocks that in fact don't have high visibility on Mill Street or as easily accessible as some other highway commercial uses. And in this regard, it was our opinion that it was appropriate for residential. And just to summarize, it would be our opinion that this is an efficient and effective use of land within the settlement area, provides an overall modest increase in density, can meet all required setbacks, parking, and height limits within the existing zoning, and certainly provides for residential housing, which has certainly been an interest in terms of the province's mandate. I do have the overall graphic I can certainly leave on my screen or stop share, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. Are there any questions from members of council? Hugh?
On page 98 of the report, 2.2 functional servicing letter, the letter concluded that the municipal servicing and utilities can be extended to the proposed development. So that's going to be the developer that picks up that cost, not the township.
I can certainly answer that if that assists through the mayor. The extension of services within the development, as noted in the report, as well as the new municipal roads within the draft approved plan of subdivision would be a developer cost.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions? Jeremy?
Yeah, Caroline, you had said that because the developments in the Milverton settlement area it's not impacted by MDS. Is Paul Mueller's farm impacted by the MDS if you wanted to expand there? Is it impacted by MDS to these properties though, like by the other way around?
Through the mayor, if he wanted to expand a new livestock on the portion of the farm outside the settlement area, it would already be restricted because these lands are designated as settlement area. So the applications before you have no impact or negative impact on the ability to construct a livestock facility.
Okay, thank you. Do you know the distance between, like, is it within the MDS circles now?
Through the mayor, that would be challenging to answer because it would depend on the size of the livestock or the livestock type to see what type of arc that would create.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have questions? Seeing no questions, council will consider a resolution regarding the planning report recommendation following the conclusion of the public meeting. Official Plan Amendment number 13 and bylaw number 206-2023 to implement the approval of the applications will be considered at a later date. The public meeting is now concluded and we will continue with regular meeting of council. So we do have a motion, and the motion reads that Council of the Township of Perth East received the report dated June 20th, 2023, prepared by the planner entitled Milverton Official Plan Amendment Number 13, a corresponding zoning bylaw amendment D14-Z06-2023-PE, submitted by Caroline Baker on behalf of Reed's Heritage Homes for lands described as blocks 28 and 29, Plan 31T-92001, Milverton Ward, Township of Perth East, 44 and 54 Mill Street, West Milverton, Plan 363, Part Lot 416, RP 44R 2796, Part 1 for information, and that council received comments from the public for consideration regarding Official Plan Amendment Number 13 to the Milverton Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment D14-Z06-2023-PE. So we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. Any more comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so we will move on in our meeting, and the next, we don't have any public hearings. We do have some planning reports. Our first planning report is zoning bylaw amendment D14-Z08-2021 PE by Caitlin Port on behalf of Bell Sands Farms, and I believe Susanna is going to do that. So Susanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mary Gutz, and good evening, Council. This application was here Perth East Council on March 7th, so it will be familiar to you. It's aggregate operation and extension to the grouse pit. The location of the property is Part Lot 25, Concession 3 and 4 in the Northeast Hope Ward. And if we go to the next slide, it's about 2.5 kilometers north and west of Shakespeare. So the official plan amendment was required. That went on to County Council. There was a public meeting at County Council, and subsequently OPA 199 was approved there. And now OPA 199 is in full force and effect. So we're returning to Perth East Council with the implementing zoning bylaw amendment with a recommendation that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved. So the next slide shows you the location of the pit and the area that will be licensed is outlined in red. The next slide is the official plan amendment, which changed the designation on the property to a mineral aggregates designation. And then the final slide is the zoning bylaw amendment slide. So this is what council is considering tonight, an application to change the zoning to an MAR special zone, MAR4, which would not permit asphalt plants, concrete mix equipment, and portable and or permanent, and also would permit a single detached dwelling farm buildings and structures. That's the purpose of the special zone, as well as the aggregate operation, of course. So the planning department's recommendation is that this application for rezoning be approved. Those are all my comments. I'm available for questions.
Okay, any questions from any members of council? Hugh?
Yeah, I noticed that the town of Minto had no comments. How far do you go out to get comments? Like Minto's pretty far away from North.
That's a good question. They were circulated. I would have to go back to see how they got caught in the circulation.
Okay.
And they didn't have any concerns
You
of note.
don't go that far.
No, this seems unusual.
Okay, anyone else? No, we have a motion, council of town. 20th, 2023, prepared by the planner, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment D14-Z08-2021-PE, submitted by Caitlin Port on behalf of Bell Sands Farms, Inc., care of Joe and Kathy Bell, affecting lands described as part of Lot 25, Concession 3 and 4, Northeast Hope Ward, Township of Perth East, 4283 Road 108 for information, and that council approves Zoning Bylaw Amendment 208-2021. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bob, second by Amanda. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, the next one on our list is the zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Doug Reum on behalf of Peter and now Beer Pot, and Pune is going to do that. So Pune, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mary Agats. With your permission, I will share my presentation, my screen once again.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, so this is the zoning bylaw amendment Z02-2023 submitted by Doug Reum for lands on 4062 line 50 Township of Perth East. This rezoning application is required as a condition of surplus farm dwelling consent file B06-23. It was endorsed by the Perth East Council on April 20th, 2023 and received conditional approval through the Land Division Committee on May 29, 2023. The property is located on line 50 west of Perth Road 119 in Ellisworth. Adjacent property uses are agricultural in nature. The property is designated agricultural in the Perth County official plan, and it is zoned agricultural in the Perth East zoning bylaw. The Perth County official plan requires that a severed land under section 5631 to be rezoned to recognize a house that is not accessory to agriculture. And it also requires an amendment to the implementing zoning bylaw to prohibit any new permanent residential dwelling on the remnant farm property. The proposed severed lot is to be rezoned A-1 with a lot frontage of approximately 55 meters on line 50 and a lot area of approximately 0.4 hectare. The proposed farm lot, the retained lot, is to be rezoned A-5 with a broken frontage of approximately 351 meters along line 50 and a lot area of 40 hectares. And it will be continued to be used for cash crops. As for public comments received, the notice of public meeting was given on March 27th. The public meeting was held on May 2nd. On May 9th, the planning department received a comment from the owner of 4097 line 50, and they provided a letter of support for this application. I haven't received any further comments. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions from members of council? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report dated June 20, 2023, prepared by the planner, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment D14-Z02-2023-PE, submitted by Doug Reum on behalf of Peter and Nell Beerpot, affecting lands described as Concession 13, Lot 2, Ellis Ward, 4062, Line 50, Township of Perth East for information, and that council approves zoning bylaw amendment 202-2023. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the next three applications all are sitting side by side, so we're going to deal with them all together at once, and then we'll have three separate motions. So Jeff is going to join us for that. So Jeff, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Agats. I'm going to share my screen here for the presentation. Okay, so the consent applications are B52, 53 from 2022, and B19 from 2023. They were submitted by Brandon Llewellyn on behalf of Southside Estates for the purpose of severing 3 new residential lots. The surrounding area is designated as residential. The cemetery lands are to the west are zoned institutional, and the adjacent lands to the north, east, and south are all a future development zone, and they're currently being farmed. The subject property is within the serviced urban area in the official plan of County of Perth and is considered a settlement area. The subject land is designated as residential, and the applicant is proposing 3 new residential parcels in the Milverton Residential Low Density R1 zone. The lands have direct frontage on Cobalt Street North, and servicing is available to the property. The lands are outside of any hazard areas, and the property is zoned for residential development. The proposed development would not prevent the ability to develop the surrounding future development lands. The parcel to be retained includes a board fence and deck that would be partially located on the lands that are subject to the consent application B1923. So as a result, an additional condition is being recommended in that consent to require the removal or the alteration of the fence and deck to bring the retained lots into conformity of the zoning bylaw before that lot can be created. A residential lot to be retained and the severed lots proposed by the consent applications all conform with the R1 zoning, minimum lot area, and lot frontage requirements in the Perth East zoning bylaw. If required, a public hearing will be held during a regularly scheduled meeting at the County of Perth Land Division Committee to consider any unresolved concerns received during the circulation period. We have received comments from one adjacent property owner that asked for clarification on the location of the subject lands. And then today they also contacted us and noted that they have a concern that they've seen an increase in the amount of water on their property over the last couple of years. They wanted to ensure that this development wouldn't make the matter worse. I did discuss the property and the application with that person, and they may be in attendance tonight to speak to the matter. A notice of the application was circulated on June 2nd and is recommended that Perth East Council recommend to the Land Division Committee of Perth County that all 3 consent applications be approved with the conditions that have been listed, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from members of council? No questions? Did you want to make a comment on the sidewalk?
Yeah, just as it relates to the consent, so yeah, we are creating 3 lots there, and council will note that the property surrounding it is also within the urban development. So part of what will be discussed or reviewed with the developer in the development agreement is contributions to future road upgrades or sidewalks that may be required as that section of town gets developed. So wanted to make that clear for council that that's something that staff will have conversations with the developer about and make the developer aware that that will be an expectation.
Okay, anyone else? Jeremy?
Yeah, so we have 3 lots, new lots being created. And the one on the furthest north could really be 3 more lots by definition. Like, we have lots of 15-meter wide lots, and we have one as part 4 here. Generally, we've stayed away from creating these giant-sized building lots in our communities. So I'm curious about why we're recommending this rather large lot here and 2 smaller lots, as opposed to asking them to be chopped in half at least. Because historically, we've kind of said we don't want these, that's what, 130 feet wide-ish or more. And we've tried to stay away from that in the past. So I'm curious about that. If that is actually truly going to be a residential building lot, or what the purpose of that lot is. Thanks.
Jeff, can you help us out?
Certainly, through the mayor. So it hasn't been identified as being a parcel that's to be developed with anything more than a single detached dwelling. Now, having said that, I know that in the past there's been discussions about that being developed with a higher density. But as of right now, the zone that permits the uses out there only allow for a single. So that's why they brought forward the application as it is now. But there is a potential that they could develop either townhouses or semi-detached dwellings there in the future if they went back to council and asked for rezoning of the property. They just haven't identified that in any of their applications. So that's just speculation at this point.
But we're recommending that it be a 130 or 140 foot wide building lot, when we've made comment here in the past that we try not to do that and have these large estate style lots within our communities. Just my point. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Just Jeff, for your information, we do have a ratepayer in the audience tonight, and she would like to be contacted when the meeting is going to be at the county, the public meeting. So Ashley will send you that information. I think she'll send it in an email, so you have it. And then can you contact that ratepayer and tell them then?
Through the mayor, yes, I can definitely do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? If not, we do have a motion. We'll do each lot separately. So the first one is that Council of the Township of Perth East received the report dated June 20th, 2023, entitled Consent Application File B52-22, submitted by Brandon Flewelling on behalf of Southside Estates, Inc., for lands described as Concession 4, Lot 8, Milverton Ward, 11 Cobalt Street North, Milverton, Township of Perth East, for information, and that Council recommend that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve Consent Application File B52-22, affecting the lands as described above, subject to the following conditions. And these 7 conditions are Perth East conditions. So number 1, that all taxes have been paid in full. Number 2, all financial requirements have been met. Number 3, confirmation be received from the Township of Perth East that a required cash in lieu of parkland dedication fee has been paid for each new severed lot. Number 4, that the municipal drains in the area are reviewed and updated to the satisfaction of the Township of Perth East. Number 5, that severed and retained lots each have been assigned separate municipal addresses and signs. Number 6, confirmation that the road access to the severed and retained parcels are to the satisfaction of the Township of Perth East. And number 7, that the owner-developer enter into a development agreement with the Township of Perth East and that the terms of the agreement be satisfactory to the Township of Perth East, including but not limited to A, provision for the connection to potable water services, sanitary and storm sewage systems, B, financial securities and requirements for connection to municipal water and sanitary, and C, a requirement for entrances. And then the Perth County conditions are as follows, that the first one, the solicitor, that certificate of the official be scanned and attached to the electronic registration of the transfer. The second one, the Land Division Committee be provided with a description that is consistent with the application and equal to that required for registration of the deed or transfer. The third one, the confirmation be received by the Perth County Land Division Committee that the notice sign and the sign frame posted on the property has returned to the issuing municipality within 30 days. If not, then there will be a replacement fee sign of $100 to replace that sign. So do we have a mover and a seconder for all that? Moved by Hugh, second by Bob. Is there any more comments or questions? Hugh?
Just a quick question. I was just noticing, is there a lot to the, I would call it probably to the south of the blue one? Like, is there a lot in there?
Jeff, can you help us out?
Through the mayor, yes, I can help you out with that. Actually, that parcel is included with the lands that are immediately to the east of that property. So it's part of the drain. The drain flows through there. And so it does have some frontage on Cobalt Street, but it is in a separate lot. It is included with that farmed area that surrounds the property. So the farm basically envelops or the entire subject lands. It's on both sides.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and now the second lot, which is Council of Township of Perth East received the report dated June 20, 2023, entitled Consent Application File B53-2022, submitted by Brandon Flewelling on behalf of the Southside Estates, Inc. for lands described as concession for Lot 8, Milverton Ward, 11 Cobalt Street North, Milverton Township of Perth East for information, and that council recommend that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve consent application file 53-22 affecting the lands described above, subject to the conditions listed below. And the conditions listed are the exact same conditions for the previous application, so I'm not going to read them all again. So any questions? No, Hugh is going to move. We need a seconder. Seconder, Bob, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, and then the third application is that Council of Township of Perth East received a report dated June 20, 2023, entitled Consent Application File B19-2023, submitted by Brandon Flewelling on behalf of Southside Estates, Inc. for lands described as concession for Lot 8, Milverton Ward, 11 Cobalt Street North, Milverton Township of Perth East for information, and that council recommend that the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve consent application file B19-2023 affecting the lands as described above, subject to the conditions below. And the conditions for this one is exactly the same as the first application, so I'm not going to read them again.
Sorry, there's one extra condition.
Oh, sorry, I misspoke.
This one has this extra condition.
There is one extra condition for this one, so it's all the same conditions, but this extra one for Perth East, and that is that confirmation be received, Township of Perth East, that the existing deck on the subject property has been removed or altered to conform with the zoning bylaw. So there's that one extra Perth East condition. Otherwise, they're all the same. Okay, so we need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hugh, second by second by Amanda. All in favor? All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Okay. Okay, so I guess we move on to CAO. The first one is draft
Do they want to do anything with this,
oh, sorry.
with this application number then?
Okay, sorry. Ashley tells me we need to go back. Does anyone want to do anything else with that application? Any other motion that anyone wants to bring forward?
If I may.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I understand the defeating the motion. If there's an understanding from a planner standpoint or a staff standpoint in terms of going back to the applicant, I heard comments from one counselor about the size of the severance. Is that the primary issue that we're trying to address in terms of defeating the recommendation? That would be helpful for us to try to move forward if there is potential to move forward as it relates to the third consent. And yeah, sorry, go ahead, Councilor.
Yep, go, Bob.
I can't speak to the others, but for me, I believe Jeremy brought up a good point about the sizing being more than necessary, and if there was more clarity on what this lot was going to entail, that would be perhaps answering the question then.
Okay, anyone else? Andrew?
Well, I'll make a comment, and the comment is it's kind of a free country, right? It's his land. He should be able to do what he wants within the rules. So that's why I voted in favor.
Does anyone want to do anything with it, or would you want to just move on? Amanda?
I mean, I think the key point is the clarity of, I believe we're making assumptions based on the information we have. And so I think just some additional information would be helpful. And as council, we need to try to look at the best interest for the township. And, you know, in terms of housing and density, that is something that we have to look at as a council. So I think that little bit of additional clarity would be certainly helpful in terms of decision point for me, at least.
Okay. So what do you wish to do? Do you wish to do anything, or we move on? Move on? Okay. All right. Then we will move to the CAO's report. And our first is draft memorandum of understanding with the Grand River Conservation Authority. So Mike, the floor is yours.
So I'll try to give the mayor a bit of a break. She's had a lot to cover in terms of the agenda thus far, but the report is quite straightforward. This is the second agreement that's been put forward in front of council. We've already entered into a similar agreement with Maitland Valley Conservation. We have not yet received one from Upper Thames Conservation Authority, but anticipate with the deadline looming that we will see one as well. In this instance, we asked GRCA, and they were very grateful or very happy to submit information in particular about the Category 2 services that are available and that are being participated in by residents and property owners in Perth East. I thought that was important context for council to understand as we move forward with the agreements. Again, this is just draft at this point. Certainly GRCA are happy to hear any feedback from council. From a staff perspective, there's nothing in the agreement that we express concern around, but certainly if there is any other feedback from council, we would take that back to GRCA before a final agreement comes back for approval.
Okay, any questions of the report, Hugh?
Yeah, I know Upper Thames, they have a spreadsheet that shows all their categories and where the money comes from to pay for them and that kind of stuff. So if they've got a spreadsheet like that, that'd be probably very helpful to see. Like it shows categories 1, 2, and 3, and it shows everything in those categories and where they're funded from.
Yeah, council may remember, we presented a report for each that included all of the conservation authorities where we had that breakdown that had been previously provided. So we can, before we finalize the agreement, we can certainly get that information back in front of council for sure.
I know Upper Thames, they continuously update it, so I just, whatever their updated version is, that'd be great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Marigat. In the second offering of what they can supply to us, the last bullet point, Joe, I apologize, I was a little busy on some other items on the agenda this week. I didn't have time to research what an unrated municipal drain is and what's the significance of that. Is that something we should be doing, or what is that?
I may actually defer that question to Eric, because when that came, we did actually look at it as well, Councillor McAlpine, to try and clarify a little bit of our own understanding around unrated drains. So Eric, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Yeah, so each municipal drain technically gets a rating, and that rating has to do with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada. So I believe it is the Conservation Authority, when they have drains within their regulatory area, they rate these municipal drains. So it's a rating from A to D. D meaning there's less fish species breeding and utilizing that drain, so it's less significant to DFO, meaning we don't need to get a permit from DFO when we're doing maintenance or capital work on those drains. And A being very significant, so we do need to get permits. And unrated simply means they have not got around to rating those municipal drains yet.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Hugh?
Yeah, it'd be far better if those drains stayed unrated. Then I have another question. They talk about consolidated linear infrastructure. Any idea what that is?
It's a great question, because I get to defer that one as well, Hugh. And probably Jake is best prepared to speak a little bit about that, but it's certainly something that's happening across the province from the ministry, but Jake can maybe provide a little bit more context.
Yeah, thanks. The consolidated linear infrastructure is something that's coming to Perth East very soon. Now it's changed a little bit from what previously went on. There would be an ECA for each particular sanitary sewer development that went on. Now everything is going to be incorporated into one large document which will govern everything. That's wastewater as well as stormwater. So both things are coming shortly. So there might be some increased responsibility on stormwater management. These are things we're yet to find out entirely, because we haven't received the final copy of our ECA, but it's all relating to linear infrastructure, so sewer lines, storm pipes, etc. So that's the gist of it.
It just stormwater and sewer pipes, that's it?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No, seeing none, we do have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Draft Memorandum of Understanding with Grand River Conservation Authority, CAO-2023-06, dated June 20, 2023, prepared by the Chief Administrative Officer for information. Moved by Jeremy, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, our next item is Township Office Closure, and we're going to put Jacinda to work right away, so the floor is yours.
Super. Thank you so much, Mayor. So a little bit of background information. I wasn't here in 2022, but the office was closed at noon on December 23rd, 2022, with the reopening of regular hours on Tuesday, January 3rd. Holiday season office closure affords our staff some time to take the opportunity to travel and spend more time with friends and family. As well, I'm aware, again, I wasn't here in December, but visits to the administrative office are typically minimal during this time. So office closure, staff would have the opportunity to either use vacation time, use lieu time, use unpaid time, work during the holiday season, or work from home with manager approval required ahead of time. For those of you who've had had the opportunity to look at the calendar for this year. Page 2, I just did a little mini calendar outlining that Christmas this year does fall on a Monday, with Boxing Day falling on a Tuesday. So looking at around those 3 days for December 27th, 28th, and 29th for being closed to the public. January 1st, 2024 does fall on a Monday, so with the reopening of the office on January 2nd, 2024, if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Okay, questions of the report? See no questions, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Township Office Closure -2023 Holiday Schedule HR-2023-01 dated June 20, 2023, prepared by the HR Manager for information, and further that Council approve the holiday schedule for the Township Municipal Office closed to the public from December 22nd at 4:30 p.m. with reopening of regular hours on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Andrew, second by Hugh. Comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and then our next report is the Mental Health Awareness to Post-Career report, and Jacinda's going to do that as well. So the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So the following resolution, number 23-187, that was passed at the June 6th, 2023 council meeting, requesting the information. There is tons of information that can be required on this topic. Bullet points on the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2 are for your information. I did try to focus on resources that would be local and specific to firefighters. Being a firefighter, this is an area that hits home for me, and I take a lot of pride in, and I know that mental health is super important. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'm not a mental health expert, but I would be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, questions, Amanda?
Not a question, just a comment. I did receive a call after this request was made to bring a report back, and the individual who spoke to me, who I understand had also reached out to Councillor McAlpine and the deputy mayor, had sort of alluded to me that he was speaking about mental health more generally speaking. And so I just wanted to bring attention, like in my ward, we have lost a couple farmers due to suicide in my time here. And so I just wanted to add another resource to your list. It is very specific to the agriculture community. It's called Agriculture Wellness Ontario. It's a partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association and the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. And again, this individual in my conversation had mentioned about just sort of sharing resources on social media. And I know that particularly in like the winter months, and those tend to be more difficult times for folks. And so just being able to ensure that we're sharing resources internally for support for staff, and also externally just bringing awareness about resources available. So just wanted to share that with everyone for just some helpful information. So just wanted to let you know.
Super, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Hugh?
Not a question, but there was one other, at our Optimus meeting, we had Wounded Warriors come to it. And they do everybody, military, paramedics, firefighters, like everything like that. So it'd be another that you could put on the list then. Thank you.
Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is great. We definitely need to support basically all of my neighbors. I was never a volunteer fireman, but yeah, when I'm cooking a steak and they're rushing out to some horrific traffic accident, we have to appreciate them. This is great. Is this stuff typically taken care of at new hire intake, or how is this information going to get to our support staff?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I reached out to our fire department, had Chief Bill Hunter here, and he did provide me with a list of what we offer to our current volunteer firefighters. And the list here is just a scratch in the surface for what we do offer them. We do have a peer support team as well, composed of a variety of different members, including a pastor. Chief Hunter can correct me if I'm wrong. Females, males, people of all different demographics, in the sense that we're hopeful that our volunteer firefighters feel comfortable going and talking with anyone. So like I said, I could use papers and papers of resources available for mental health, but these are the ones that I thought were kind of specific to volunteer firefighters. And I really appreciate the feedback for, again, the farmers, being this is a really heavily agricultural populated area, as well as the wounded warriors. That's great. I'll definitely add these to our list for current volunteer firefighters and any information for post firefighters as well. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Mental Health Awareness for Post-Career Township of Perth East Firefighters HR-2023-02 dated June 20, 2023, prepared by the Human Resource Manager for information. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hughes, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're going to move on to the clerk, and the first report is engineer appointment to the Rough Ridge Municipal Drain, and Eric is going to do that. So, Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So yeah, the first report is to appoint an engineer. Staff are recommending we appoint Dietrich Engineering for the Rough Ridge Municipal Drain. We did circulate this drain with the Upper Thames Conservation Authority, and they did come back with some concerns. So those concerns regarding the enclosure of the drain will be passed on to the engineer, and it will be discussed when it comes to report writing time. And if there's any questions, I can try to answer.
Okay, any questions of the report? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Engineer Appointment Rough Ridge Municipal Drain dated June 20, 2023, prepared by the Development and Drainage Coordinator for information, and further that Council appoint Dietrich Engineering Limited to prepare an engineer's report under Section 78 of the Drainage Act for the Rough Ridge Municipal Drain, Lot 23, Concession 1, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hughes, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. And the next one is repair and improvements, Section 78 for the Michaels Municipal Drain. Eric?
Thank you. So we did receive a new Section 78 request from some landowners in Ellis Ward for the Michaels Municipal Drain. The Michaels Municipal Drain is an open ditch, and it flows northwesterly and outlets into Branch 5 of the Stock Municipal Drain. The property owners are requesting to enclose the open ditch. So per the Drainage Act, we will circulate this to the Conservation Authority, and then we'll come back with an engineer appointment report.
Okay, any questions of the report? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the request for repair and improvement, Section 78 of the Drainage Act by property owners Glenn Michaels and Pete Ninehouse for the Michaels Municipal Drain, lots 28 and 29, Concession 6, Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East, for information. And further, that in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, the appointment of an engineer will be considered at the August 15, 2023 regular meeting of council subsequent to the notice advising of the proposed drainage works being sent to the Secretary-Treasurer of the Conservation Authority that has jurisdiction over the lands in the affected area. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bob, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. And the third item is tender opening of the Wagler Shantz Municipal Drain. Eric?
Thank you. So yeah, we did have a tender for the Wagler Shantz Municipal Drain. We received 3 submissions, with Robinson Farm Drainage coming at the lowest at $248,837. Staff are recommending awarding that tender to Robinson Farm Drainage. I will just note that the engineer's assessment was $242,560. So all the bids did come in slightly over budget or over the estimate, with Robinson Farm Drainage being about $6,300 over. We did have the quarter revision for the Wagler-Shantz Municipal Drain tonight, and the court upheld the engineer's assessment schedule.
Okay, any questions? Hugh,
Could I just ask a question after we're done this?
after the motion?
Yeah.
Sure.
No, it's just after we're totally done it, after we vote on it. Just a question about drainage engineers.
Okay, sure. All right, so we do have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Tender Opening, Wagler-Shantz Municipal Drain 2023 DDC-2023-21, dated June 20th, 2023, prepared by the Development and Drainage Coordinator for information, and further that Council award the tender for construction of the Wagler-Shantz Municipal Drain 2023 to Robinson Farm Drainage with their submission of $248,837, excluding taxes, only upon satisfactory resolution to all appeals before the Court of Revision. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Jeremy, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Okay, Hugh, the question?
Just a quick question. Do we have an official drainage engineer for Perth East? Like, I know people get to choose whoever they want, but do we have somebody that we would consider our official engineer?
Yes, through you, the mayor. Dietrich Engineering is our appointed drainage superintendent. So to be a superintendent, you don't technically need to be an engineer. You just need to have the certification to be the drainage superintendent. And with Section 78 and Section 4 of the Drainage Act, it's within council's right to appoint whichever engineering firm they would like for those capital improvement projects. So there's no official drainage engineer, but Bill Dietrich is our drainage superintendent.
Okay, great. Thanks, Eric. Okay, we're going to move on to finance, and our first item is the 2022 low-risk user group coverage changes. Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Agates. So before council tonight is a report regarding a change that I became aware of from our 2021 insurance coverage to our 2022 insurance coverage, and that being related to the low-risk user group coverage. So for the 2021 policy, our insurance covered the low-risk user groups at a premium of $1,375. This was essentially a blanket premium. And then in 2022, the policy changed, and that was an adjustable premium with an initial deposit of $3,600 that would be audited and reconciled at year end. So the reporting is required the same for both ways for 21 and 22, quarterly reporting based on the facility users. So that was all submitted, and I received an invoice for 2022's adjustment and reconciliation for the low risk user groups in the amount of $22,253. This is quite a significant change, and I went back to the previous report where council accepted the policy renewal. This change wasn't noted, so I wanted to make sure council was aware of this change, as well as seek approval for funding of this invoice for the $22,000. So it's being proposed to cover this invoice through the insurance reserve, which currently had a balance of $87,673 at the end of 2022. And this reserve was established to fund liability insurance deductibles and extraordinary insurance expenses as approved by council. So, yeah, this is a tough one. It's kind of an unknown, unexpected expense for insurance. It relates to the previous year. So that's why I'm proposing to cover it through this insurance reserve. That being said, I'm asking for additional time to analyze and evaluate the impact of our 2023 rentals so that we can include the various scenarios in the 2024 budget going forward. So there's 3 options that I presented in the report. The first being the township continues to cover the premium costs. And I've estimated, since we only have the 1 year as historical, I estimated approximately $25,000 annually being billed for this, which is approximately 0.3% of the 2023 township tax levy. Option 2 would be to reassess our fees and charges bylaw and include the insurance premiums based on the rental fees. And that's gonna jack up your rental fees for your facilities. I would want to ensure that we're not pricing ourselves out of the water in the area comparison to other facilities, as well as currently the rental fees are only included in our fees and charges bylaw for township run facilities on our township property. We do have a number of facilities that are run by user groups and committees that we don't want to scare off with all of these extra requirements. However, we do have this added cost that needs to be covered. So we can include those in the rental fees, the additional insurance premiums, and I would suggest that the outside user groups would provide their rental fees for inclusion in the fees and bylaw going forward. Option 3 would be to obtain an insurance provider that offers insurance coverage online, reasonably priced, and require all rentals to obtain their own insurance. This is going to add administrative work to those outside user groups that are running the township facilities, as well as to the township staff. So those are a few options going forward that we're looking at. If council has any suggestions, preference, please let me know. And if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Okay, questions, Amanda?
Just so I'm clear, Paul, you're asking for additional time to provide a better assessment. Like, for example, option 2 would require additional research. So these options are not what you're seeking council's approval on tonight? Is that, like, I just want to understand what direction you're looking for council on. Like, for me personally, option 2 is very attractive, but again, it's hard to make that assessment without the additional information, which would require a report back.
Yes, thank you for the question. So I guess what I would be looking, primarily, I'm looking for approval of how to fund this invoice from 2022 in the amount of the $22,000, as well as if council has a strong preference for one of the options presented here. Otherwise, I will continue investigating the 3 options and we'll go from there. I don't know, I think as far as my first one off right now, 2023, we'd probably have to go status quo, where the township covers the cost again, whether it be from reserves or we include it in the taxation. And then there's going to be, if there is any changes requiring the user groups to require this insurance premium and the coverage, there's going to have to be a campaign period and an information process going out to the user groups in support for them. Does that answer your question?
Okay, we do have a budget visioning session in July, and hopefully we can have some discussion that night about the insurance and where we are going to go moving forward. Jeremy?
So the sequence of events that occurred here, we paid our invoice in 2021, fine. 2022 rolls, we reported all of our events in 2021. 2022 rolls around, we decide to extend the policy another year with Aon. No notification of changes to premium other than, I can't remember what the premiums were in 2021. I'm curious what the net increase now is to us from 21 into 22, because I'm pretty sure it was already pretty hefty, and now we're getting slapped with another 10%, 9%. What was our 2021 premium?
I don't have that that off the top of my head. I can try and look it up as we carry
But
on.
no notification that anything changed in the meantime, and no changes in our reporting processes to them.
No, that's what I'm highly disappointed in, is from 21 to 22, obviously I wasn't here for that change, but there was nothing in my files looking at the difference. There was nothing in the report to council, which this is a significant change. It would be reported to council. The recreation manager, she was unaware of any changes as well until year end, we get this reconciliation and
the
this
proposal
invoice.
came to us the same way it always does. Here's your renewal premium, lump it or leave it. We paid it. Okay. And so in effect, this is going to cost us $50,000. Really? Cost someone $50,000.
Yes, more than likely.
Because we've already gone through 22 and we're halfway into 23, and we're going to be reporting probably more because facilities are open again.
With COVID.
So it's probably going to be, so passing that cost on to the user, do we have a breakdown of what they're charging per different low risk event? You have that breakdown, or did they just send the invoice without a breakdown?
I do have a breakdown of their fees.
So it would be, there's an easy way to pass it on to the end user, I guess is my question.
There is an easy way to pass it on because there is a set schedule of fees, if I can find it here. Based on the event, it's not a cut and dry. The fees bylaw is going to be expanded drastically because it's going to go based on the size, the attendees, alcohol, non-alcohol. So my initial preference would be to probably go through the third-party companies that offer it, and those offerings are at a more reasonable cost. The one company narrows it down to the hours of the function, so they are allowed to reduce the fee. They're not charging you a premium for the full day, basically.
And even if we did that, we wouldn't be able to implement that until, let's say, August 1st.
Well, yeah.
For example. And we've already got bookings till the end of the year. People have maybe paid. It's a pretty big boo-boo for us to not be notified of a change this drastic, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty disappointing, but I mean, I know whatever.
I guess my question is, can they do this? Like, we're already halfway through 2023, and they're talking about 2022, right? So 2020, it was over, the books are audited, we're moving on to the next year of our insurance policy, and then now they're saying, oh, you owe us money from a year ago. Is that, Jeremy, you're in the insurance business, have you ever seen that before?
I've heard of this happening before, but not to this extent. Say you have a business that started up and you were doing 50,000 in gross receipts one year, and that's what you're paying in premium, and the next year you're doing 5 million. I think they do have the ability to sort of retroactively charge you an additional premium. Generally, you'd be notified of that though, and not stuck with a $50,000 bill, which is in effect what's happening to us here.
Yeah, to answer that, from my perspective, Mayor, when I received this invoice, that was my first thing. I went right back to the policy and I was like, they can't do this. I paid the premium. And I read the policy for 2022 and it was an adjustable premium. It was clear in there. It said it was an adjustable premium to be reconciled at year end. And then when I was doing the renewal for 2023, the current year, I was comparing policies from 2022 to 2023, which already had that change. The issue was from 21 to 22, so I didn't clue in that this was a big issue. I thought we had already switched to it, the adjustable premium. So, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
I just, yeah, part of the frustration is, and Becky can speak to this too, is the low risk events, yeah, it used to be a blanket policy. We recognized we needed to provide that coverage. Then the insurance companies started for more information related to these low risk events. In 2021, that was great. We did it. We didn't like doing it. We still don't like doing it. And now they're using it against us to establish the adjustable premium. Really, really frustrating in terms of working through this. And I think it will certainly be a very targeted conversation at time of renewal. We're going to want more information about this, and we're looking at how others are addressing this too. Creating an additional burden on our user groups who operate our facilities for us is, I think from a council perspective, really, really hard to do. It's a non-starter. Those people are providing a service for us, so we don't want to create a more administrative burden on them, and increasing our fees related to these low-risk events will just drive us completely out of the market. People will go elsewhere, drive sheds, barns, anywhere else for these type of low-risk events, because most of the low-risk events are family reunions, things of that nature, and they're not going to pay $400 because the insurance is $250 related to that event. So it's really, really frustrating, and the way it was handled with us doesn't seem right, but there was transition happening, and so that's, maybe that they're using that to an advantage on their end. But certainly when premium discussions and going to market, it certainly pushes those things forward for us from a staff perspective, and I'm sure council supports that.
I'm curious if there was a phone call made to you before receiving the invoice, or you just received it and then wondered, what the hell is this?
There was a phone call made by myself to the insurance contact when they were pushing for the reconciliation so quickly, the listing, and I kind of clued in at that point, and I was like, so are you going to be invoicing me for the difference of this $3,600 versus what our listing comes out as? And he's like, yes, that's the whole point. You should be charging these fees, these premiums on top of your rental fees.
I mean, it's within the purview of the municipality to provide all of this type of service. So when you say that you're looking for an insurance quote for a municipality, the insurance provider knows what our operations are and that we operate these facilities. They know exactly what we're doing.
And further to that, I was told during my phone call that municipal insurance coverage has changed in this low-risk environment, and they are moving away from those blanket policies, and I was told everyone is on this adjustable premium. Well, I'm not sure if that's the fact, but I know of one that wasn't when I left. So.
Okay, Andrew?
Thank you, Marigat. So is this our main provider, Treasurer Michaels, for everything, or is this just for specifically events only?
It's for our low-risk events only.
Okay, so it's not that hard to cut them loose.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
Sorry, we don't have a different provider for low-risk events. This is our insurance provider for our entire insurance portfolio. This is just one piece of it.
We have a brokerage.
Yeah.
Insurance broker.
We have a single point of contact that takes care of all of this for us.
Yes, but there is separate policies for the different things. Yes.
Okay, anyone else? So we do have a motion. I'll read it. We'll see where it goes. We have the motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report titled 2022 Low Risk Event Coverage Changes FIN-2023-16, RCS-2023-08, prepared by the Treasurer and Recreation Manager, dated June 20, 2023, for information. And that council authorized the payment of invoice in the amount of $22,253.40 from AON for the 2022 low-risk user group premium adjustment to be funded from the insurance reserve. And further, that council directs staff to review the 2023 user fees and the impact of the additional of the low-risk event insurance premiums to the facility rental fees in preparation for the 2024 fees and charges update, inclusion in the 2024 budget, and consideration during the 2024 insurance renewal process. Okay, do we have a mover and a seconder for all that? Moved by Hugh, second by Jeremy. Any more questions? I guess I have one. What are the consequences if we don't pay 2022? Will they cut us off?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, good old registered letter canceling us probably.
Yeah.
You can still keep sending us the money for the premium because we really signed a letter saying we don't want them.
Okay, anyone else questions? Bob?
I believe during the budget process, we acknowledged, like everyone, a fairly significant insurance increase. And I believe that every so many years, you might put this out to RFP. Is that coming close to time?
Yes, we should be going out to market. However, I'm cautious on that. I've been sitting in on a lot of insurance and risk management webinars and sessions lately. The discussion is we're kind of moving out of a hard market into the softer market, and there's maybe some more players that are coming into the municipal field. I would like to hold off one more year and be ready and go out to market for 2025 insurance in 2024. Going to market right now, we're the end of June. We'll be hard pressed to get something in by the end of the year.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, now we're moving to year to date. Paula, the floor is yours.
Okay, so before council tonight is the year-to-dates through May 31st, 2023. And the general revenues are coming in at 46%. General expenditures are at 40%. The water wastewater revenues are at 53%, and the water wastewater expenditures are at 38%. So that being said, the calendar year used is 41%. So our general revenues, we've collected slightly above the 41% target, and the general expenditures were just slightly under. We're pretty much right on target at that 41%. Water wastewater, we have billed 50% out, so the revenues are slightly above the 50%, and our wastewater expenditures are running at 38% right now, and that's mainly due to expenditures that are gearing up now during the construction season. So one thing for council to note is fuel and heating costs are trending higher than what has been budgeted. So for the 2023 budget, those line items we originally reduced those from what was originally submitted, because it wasn't anticipated that these commodity prices would remain elevated for so long. Now, I'm realizing that probably shouldn't have been cut, because the costs are staying elevated and probably will be elevated for the near future. So these two areas are being monitored closely, and analysis is being completed now to make sure the increased cost isn't related to an increase in volume usage. It's actually due to the commodity price. And I have finished my analysis on the heating costs, and the cubic meter usage is in line with last year's, so it is a commodity pricing as far as the heating costs are related. The fuel costs, I'm still analyzing, and I'm finding it a little difficult due to when we fill up and that, so I'm trying to come to a apples to apples comparison to make sure we're in line there. So those are two areas that we're watching closely, and if there's any questions that council had related to the year-to-dates, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, questions of the report, Andrew? Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Treasurer Michaels, about the energy costs. Do municipalities qualify for any type of carbon tax rebate or anything like that, or?
I haven't come across any carbon rebate for municipalities as of yet. It is something that's on my radar and I keep track of, trying to.
Likely that's
look for money.
probably what's increasing it, and maybe, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Hugh?
On page 186 there, like the library, it says they've used 99.94% of their expenses, but they've only used like 33.28% of their budget. Like, could you just explain how that works? Yeah, but the library expenses, that's.
But this is the township budget.
What page were you on?
Page 185, Paul.
185?
186, or 185, I guess.
Okay, so the library expenses, that 99.94% expensed, that's our grant, the township operating grant to the library. We've fully paid that to them. And then the library board is the actual library expenses, and they've only have expenses of 33%, and they've brought in revenue of the 91.57%, and that's skewed because of our operating grant going into them.
Yep. No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that that's what it was.
Yep.
And just one other one, in page 187 bylaw, duplicate payment for legal notice. So is that like when we would send out a bill for somebody, or that we would be using a lawyer or something like that?
Yes, what happened on that was there was a duplicate payment of an invoice from a lawyer's office that we had used that was paid twice in December. So by the time it got resolved, it was into the new year, and it didn't get posted back to 2022 in error.
We would be using a lawyer for which, like in the bylaw department, would be somebody wouldn't pay their fine and then we'd be using a lawyer, or?
No, I don't know as if we'd be using that. If maybe Wes would be able to.
I could probably address that. So a lot of times when we're dealing with bylaw enforcement, we would consult with a lawyer depending upon next steps. Let's say it was a property standards issue. It's typically a consultation that happens. And a lot of times, depending upon the timing of that, sometimes we're able to apply those to the property depending upon the nature of the consultation, but sometimes it's not. But that's typically for bylaw, it's more of a consultation about what are next steps related to enforcement when our initial enforcement activities aren't successful.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we have a motion. Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Year-to-Date FIN-2023-17 dated June 20, 2023, prepared by the Treasurer for information. Mover and a seconder, moved by Jeremy, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. And then we have our 2022 year-end analysis. Paula?
Okay, so my final report before council tonight is regarding to the 2022 cash surplus. And Paul Seebach was here reporting our surplus as the 39 million. And no, that's paper. It's not cash. So our cash surplus is 51,158 for 2022. And that equates to 0.4% of the general and policing operation budgeted expenditures for 2022. The chart within the report notes where the surpluses and deficits came from. And it's being proposed to transfer this cash surplus of $51,000 to the general contingency reserve. And this will assist in offsetting the predicted 2023 deficit, given the fuel and heating forecasts. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, any questions? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled 2022 Year-End Analysis, FIN-2023-18, dated June 20, 2023, prepared by the Treasurer for information, and further that the 2022 cash surplus of $51,158 be transferred to the general contingency reserves. We need a motion, moved by Bob, second by Jeremy, all in favor? Carried. We're going to take a 2-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish up the agenda. Okay, and we're back, and so we're moving on to our next item under Public Works and Parks, and we have the Shakespeare Water Environmental Assessment. So Jake, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Eggetts. This report covers the final screening report. The draft screening report was brought to council April 4th. Very little difference in this report, or the final version, rather. There would be comments received, they're captured in the appendices, and that's pretty much all that has changed with this report. We just wanted to keep council in the loop on where we're at with this project. There were no orders received. So essentially, that being said, this would complete the report component of the EA. And we're moving on to the implementation stage, which right now we're actually we're receiving results for the arsenic technology itself. We've received those tenders actually and are assessing, trying to make a decision on which one to go with. That would be the next step, and also an archaeological study is about to be done, if not already initiated. From there, once we have the technology selected, BM Ross would initiate a design process for the facility, which would house the new treatment technology as a package, and then that would go to the ministries, et cetera, for approval in due time. But for now, this would more or less wrap up the reporting component of the EA. If there are any questions, I'll try and answer.
Okay, questions of the report? Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. It's, my computer actually just decided to stop working, so you might have to give me 2 seconds here if that's possible. If somebody else has any, that's fine. I'm willing to defer. It went to sleep and it doesn't want to wake up. So, give me 2 seconds.
If I may, Mayor Eggetts, just add one thing while Andrew works on his computer.
Sure.
The funding component of this project is not captured in the report itself. That is yet to happen. We've held some initial discussions on how this will be funded. That topic is ongoing, and we will be bringing a report to council at some point this summer surrounding the financing. So that is to come.
Okay. Andrew?
No one else? Cool. Okay, so no, thanks. It's a lot of work. It's been a long road. Just going to go through a couple of things here, just kind of from the report, and hopefully we can answer it. If not, then I apologize. There was quite a bit more that I wanted to submit, but it was also not complaining, but the reason for asking for the extension, right? So we'll just have to do it this way, and hopefully we can get it out there. So if we go to page 256, it says Class B. So when I look at the chart, and I look at the reference information given by at the bottom of the report, I look at.
It's P 256, Andrew.
I believe so. Here, hold on a second.
Oh yeah, I see Class B here.
Yeah, so Class B, I have talked to IT, this computer's circling the drain. So when I go to the Municipal Class Environment Assessment Handbook, which is referenced in the report, the MOEE and by the Municipal Engineering Association, it shows a Class B would establish, enlarge a water distribution system, increase pumping station capacity, water crossing or new replacement water facilities. And Class C, which is a different animal altogether, is construct a new wastewater system, including a water distribution system. So that's part A. So the second part of that is, and the next page, and this is for treatment plants and wells for table of water project descriptions. Now this is what the handbook is. I understand that is used by you guys to figure this out, and I got this information from the report in the footnotes. So construct a new water treatment or expand existing, as we said, establish a new surface water source, and artificially recharge. So it looks to me like I'm just wondering why B was chosen instead of C. There's a number of other reasons, especially when you look at A, which is, struggling here. A will, on existing right of way, do small, like, I know we passed that, but I'm just wondering the rationale between the difference between A and B and C. So C seems to be where we're at, A was where we were at, and B is what was selected. So B seems the least likely opportunity. A seems to be the cheapest. I'm just wondering how we got from, that would have been at the Miller Street site, should we have chosen that back in the day? So we've chosen the B, it should be C, which is a lengthier process. I guess my question is how did we come up with the B as opposed to the A and the C? If we can answer that in this time.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I can't speak as to why BM Ross chose one approach or another, but my understanding is it falls within one or the other. So if you're suggesting that we're under the wrong schedule, then that's certainly something that needs to be addressed. I do pose a question why this wasn't brought up at the last meeting when the draft came to council, if that was a concern at that point.
No, I'm not criticizing. It's just a question, trying to understand, because cost differences, the cost differences between an A and a B and a C are huge. C is obviously huge. It's like huge public consultation. In A, basically it reads like you can just go ahead and just build with, and especially an emergency situation, which we had at the first, right, when we first started this. So it's just, it's a lot of money, and I thought I would ask the question. I don't know if we need an amendment before we approve this tonight, an amendment to this to be sent to the ministry and request an amendment that it goes to A, so we can, it might be too late now that we've moved and actually are constructing a different facility. So that's basically the question is it doesn't appear from my limited knowledge of the system, and obviously I trust staff, but it seems we've extra cost, and it probably should be more because we're building a new plant. So that's the first question.
I think just before you move on, Mike has a comment.
Yeah, I think Councilor McAlpine, it's a reasonable question. I think the project engineer who council selected for that is best served to answer the question. I don't think it changes the dynamic of the report, and I think they can provide that answer. We can circle back with them and get that answer and share it with council.
Also, I will remind council that we did make a motion. We did pick one of the options, and that was approved by council, and it needs to be upheld by council and supported by everyone. Also, the EA has already been implemented, so I do not think we can make any adjustments or changes at this time. They're already in the process of doing it. So I believe that that's not possible to amend something.
I don't think it's final until we approve it tonight. And we also
I disagree, but you can ask your next question.
Yeah, no, as far as, where we're at, it would have been nice to know this maybe for the A back in April of 21 when there was a council report that did not come to council. So I'll carry on with my next question. So I'm just curious about, and this has come up, I was reading through the Shakespeare water presentation, which was very well done. It was a good idea to have a public consultation. So I still am looking for information about the capacity increase in the beginning, and it's stated throughout and including in the presentation that this isn't about expansion or capacity increase. However, later it is pointed out that it is for. So can we rationalize, in case there's anybody watching, the difference between the capacity increase and what looks like expansion, but stating in that public forum at the school that it wasn't about expansion. So I have that screenshot here. Geez, here we go.
What page are you?
So this is in the.
What page are you on?
Just let me flip back here, Mayor, I apologize here. So I'm on this page now. So on the public display board at the school, it said important information. There are no plans to expand the water distribution system. Mandatory connection is not being considered or proposed. I'm just reading from our sheet.
So you're on page what, Andrew? I don't know what page you're on.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Yeah, so P203. Right, it states, and further adequate size treated water storage could potentially benefit the whole community by increasing system capacity, expansion, and providing water for community level fire protection. So the first question is we seem to have two different narratives for the public on, is it about expansion and capacity? Is it about capacity? It's capacity and providing water for fire protection. It's not capacity or providing. So that's why I'm asking. It's in the wording. And very respectfully, I ask, I still haven't seen, and I'd love to see, some justification more than the excellent word of our fire chief. Do we have anything else we can give to the public? The fire marshal consultation, community safety well-being plan? Is there any fire board minutes, any council resolutions, just so we can bring this forward to the public for the fire protection part? Because the recommendation is, the statement as I understand it is, it does not support fire, which was absolutely factual. Does that mean it's not safe? I highly doubt it, because we would have already acted on it. So being that the fire portion is a huge component of this in cost-wise and location and building, I think we need more information. It's like $1 million, right? So if we have that information, that's great. I'm just want to know if it's available, the justification for the extra fire.
Well, my explanation would be council's looking towards the future. We're looking ahead and where we need to go, and now's the time to start putting that into place. We can't wait 10 years and figure out that things aren't big enough or aren't where we are. I was thinking about the future and where the future is going. And I will remind you again, we do have a motion. It's already been implemented and it's on its way. So I'm not sure what you're coming at here or what you think is going to happen tonight with this report, because council passed to go with our option.
Yeah, the option's different than finalizing this report. This report is a public document and it has to be airtight. The public will rely on this document, right? And this can be challenged, this document.
I'll let Mike.
Yeah, the question that you asked, Councilor McAlpine, was in relation to the public meeting and the decision of council on option C. So if the question is related to the report, I think that's great, and we'll take those questions around that to the project engineer. But if the question is about the justification for the decision was made based on information that was presented to council that everybody was prepared for and made that decision. So the questions around the options and the distinguishment around those options were part of what was addressed when the decision was made. So I think if we're focusing on the report, which is part of the EA process, that's fine. But questions around how the decision was made around the option has already been addressed.
I appreciate the comments. I think that the information is here and we're voting on it. It's in front of us. to accept it or not accept it. And that's why I'm asking these questions, is to get transparency, right? So we've just heard from the mayor, which is good finally, that it is about growth and it is about the future. It's not about that. So the one slide, maybe there's a miscommunication, but it is in the report. All these items what I'm speaking about are in the report. It's in the agenda tonight, and all these items are in the report. So people want to know, my people want to know the answers to this stuff, and very little of it is getting answered satisfactorily. This is what they're telling me. So when we look at on page 237 in the EA manual, this guidebook that's referenced and that I'm looking at that I didn't have time to send to everybody. So we've determined the preferred location based on criteria. Now, is there criteria for social and cultural impacts? Now, I didn't see it other than in the first report, I guess we call it version 1 or phase 1, that said there was no impacts because, and I'm not advocating for it, but because it was at Miller. When we changed that criteria did not change, it did not broaden. So I'm going to say that that's probably incomplete, that part of that. And I know if the gentleman at the ministry probably wasn't aware of any of that because he just gets the document. So I guess what I'm asking is there any criteria that anybody knows of? And I guess that's another question for the engineering group. Was there any changes to that criteria, the cultural environment? And part of that's financial too. Costs, we said we're going to talk about that later. It's in this report, but I'll do what I'm supposed to do in here and not discuss it. So just to make a note of all the starting on page 265, all the comments, there's no interest, whether we're going to grow or not, in having 82% of the people who responded ever want to connect to the community water system. And then the second intake for the same question, 81% said no, thank you. So it's the same feedback throughout, and I'd just like council to please consider that. You know, we want to make sure our democracy is working very well in Perth East because it's a great place to live. So on the cost estimates on page 266, it states a description of the alternatives, including potential cost estimates. And this is important because that was our information meeting to go to, bullet point at the top of the page, bullet point 5, which is the fifth one of, there's 3 on the other page. The cost estimates, they weren't presented at the thing. And I know it's just an oversight, but that's a big deal. That's a big decision making on people and how they want to put information into this EA, this document we're talking about tonight. It's all about mitigation and talking to people. I'm sure Councillor Broadhagen knows quite a bit about the EA process and how we want to make sure we answer all the questions and find some remedy if we can, right, as the proponent. So those cost estimates were not provided. I've checked so yeah.
Can I just raise a point of order? I don't understand, first of all, you're making comments about me. I don't hear a question. You're offering your opinion, which is fine, but want to get an understanding of what you were referring to regarding me, about my understanding of the EA process. What are you referring to, Councillor McAlpine?
Your expertise in the field.
I don't have expertise in the field.
My apologies.
So I'm just seeking clarification because
the question.
No, excuse me. Excuse me, Councillor McAlpine. Please refer to my expertise. I don't have an engineering designation in EA. What are you referring to?
I'm referring to do you not work at the Ministry of the Environment where this report went to?
Excuse me, I work in communications. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. No, I'm just relying on your expertise as we do with farming and
What's the question? What's the point? I'm asking a question.
That's enough. Get to the questions, Andrew.
Yeah, so the question is why wasn't the cost estimate presented at the meeting? It was an important piece of the puzzle. Was it an oversight? Do we know why it wasn't presented? Because that was a big part of the decision-making process of the public who we had this meeting we sent everybody to. So that's something I guess we can bring back to BM Ross. So I'm just, another BM Ross one. I'm just, here we go with the Class A versus Class B and the cost. I kind of hoped BM Ross would have been here tonight. It's unfortunate they're not. They're very, very knowledgeable. So just a heads up, the companion guide, the MOE, is put out by the Municipal Engineering Association, and I believe it's referenced in the footnotes of the document on where, above many other documents, and how to get to where they are. So again, page 82, if I can reference, and I'm going to ask the question on this, it looks like it should be a Class C. Again, I guess we're going to BM Ross for that. That's fine. We can, I guess, like Mayor Aggett said, the decision's been made. We're just at the point where we want to spend a lot of money. And
Page 82, Andrew.
Yes. Sorry.
Not PE 82.
Oh, sorry, page 82. Hold on a sec. I apologize. My computer took a big upside down thing here. It won't be page 82. It's probably 82 on the report, page 15.
What page are you on now?
Hold on a second. My apologies. This computer is not happy. P50, 49. Yeah, it's probably the BM Ross document is numbered differently. So there's PE and there's page. So I'm going to try and find this. I can't search this.
I see page numbers on every page of Perth East. So.
Yeah, no, my apologies. I must have, hold on a second here. I must have referenced 75. Come on.
It relates to the class again.
Yeah, so that one's kind of a non-starter, it looks like anyway. So. I don't know what my computer's doing here. So on page 227, I'm going to guess that's probably the same thing. Give me a second here. I had that document up separately, so that's why. Yeah, if you look later in the, just as I'm trying to find this here, if you look later, you'll see in the study documentation, if you start looking at page 358, you'll see the Shakespeare water thing, presentation. I know it was very well done and very well attended.
Can you sit closer to the microphone, please, because I can barely hear you.
I'm going to pull it out of the thing here. Yeah, so on that one, you can see what I referred to before. Yeah, no plans to extend the water system, mandatory connection. So that, for me, the question is that extending the water system to all customers, or is that building the capacity? Are we building the capacity to do that in the future? Would be the question I would have, because it seems to be the same thing, right? I want to drill down on what we're actually doing here. Is it the arsenic or is it expansion? Mayor Aggett's very nicely offered that it is about expansion and it is about the future. So that's fine. I guess we'll have to take that for the
Mike is going to comment.
Yeah, quickly, I think it was clear the decision of council was the intent is not to force existing residents to connect to the system, so that's not the direction. The primary focus has been throughout is addressing the arsenic, and the longer it takes us to go through these processes, the slower it gets as it relates to actually doing the treatment, which has been the focus that we've been told to focus on. I understand there's concerns, I get it. The decision of council was to move forward with the option. Staff has taken that and tried to move forward because we've been told repeatedly that the primary focus is the arsenic treatment. So we're trying to move forward with that. Getting into questions in terms of the schedules, we can clarify that, but as it relates to the decision-making and the process that was established, that was agreed to by council to get us to this point so we could move forward with treating the arsenic. So that's what we're trying to do from a staff perspective. I hope we are on the same page with council unless I've been directed otherwise. That's what we're trying to do. To isolate the system to focus only on the treatment, a decision was made by council to give consideration to allow for some growth capacity as part of the consideration. That was done, but it never took away from the focus, which was the arsenic treatment. That's what we're trying to do.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? I need the motion. I lost it. Okay, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report dated June 20, 2023, entitled Shakespeare Water Environmental Assessment Final Screening Report, PUB 2023-16, prepared by the Operations Coordinator and Manager, Public Works and Parks for information. Moved by Bob, second by Amanda. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Recorded vote, please.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor McMillan,
Yay.
Councillor Matheson,
Yay.
Councillor McAlpine,
Nay.
Councillor Broadhagen,
Yay.
Deputy Mayor McDermott,
Nay.
Mayor Agates.
Yay.
It's 4 in favor, 2 opposed. It's carried.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to, we have no reports from building, no reports from recreation and community services, no reports from fire. We have no correspondence. Under council and committee reports, my meeting log was last meeting. Under council reports, does anyone have anything that they sit on, any committees, boards that they want to bring up at this time? From County Council, we had a presentation at our last County Council meeting from Director of Corporate Services, Annette Diamond, and she did a presentation on the cameras on the buses. If you get a chance, go back and have a look at it and read it. At the AMO conference in August, Western Ontario Wardens are presenting to the Minister of Transportation, and county is going to sit in on that presentation. We are finding that it is a huge expense. We're hoping the province is going to help us pay for it or come up with some other ideas, but it's still at the implementing stages or how it's all going to work. Anyone else have anything? If not, we have a motion to accept the verbal report. Moved by Amanda, second by Bob. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have 3 bylaws that need first and second reading. First bylaw is 110-2023, and that's a bylaw to consolidate municipal drain maintenance completed in 2019 to 2022. The second one is bylaw 208-2021, and it's a bylaw to amend bylaw 30-1999, part of lot 25, concession 3 and 4, Northeast Hope Ward, 4283 Road 108, and that was item 8.1.1 tonight. And the third one is bylaw 202-2023, a bylaw to amend bylaw 30-1999, concession 13, lot 2, Ellis Ward, 4062, line 50, and that was 8.1.2 tonight. So we need a motion to accept them first and second readings. Moved by Hugh, second by Amanda, all in favor? Carried. And then we have third and final readings, and we have 4 bylaws. 105-2023, it's a provisional bylaw to provide for drainage work known as Branch A of the Richardson Municipal Drain 2023 Northeast Hope Ward. The second one is bylaw 110-2023, being a bylaw to consolidate municipal drain maintenance completed in 2019 to 2022, and that was 11.1.1, and the bylaw 208-2021, a bylaw to amend bylaw 30-1999, and that's part of Lot 25, Concession 3 and 4, Northeast Hope Ward, 4283 Road 108, and the fourth one, 202-2023, a bylaw to amend 30-1999, Concession 13, Lot 2, Ellis Ward, 4062, line 50. Someone move and second that. Moved by Amanda, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. There's no need for a closed session. Any notice of motions? Under new business, Amanda has one item, and that has to do with our twinning with our oh, wait a minute, sorry, back up. We had our auditors, so we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the presentation from Paul Seebach, CFP, CA, Seebach and Company, Chartered Professional Accountants, 2022 audited financial statements for information, and that the 2022 financial statements for the Township of Perth East be approved as received. Moved by Jeremy, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Now, Amanda, sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Just a quick update and a request for council. We had our Perth East Twinning Committee meeting last night, and so we're getting ready for our guests to arrive from Neresheim, Germany. We have about 70 guests that we are welcoming to the Township of Perth East, which is around the Thanksgiving weekend. On part of the request that they have asked that they would like to see while they're here is they're very interested in seeing Perth East facilities. And so we're working on putting together an itinerary, and the caveat is that it is October the 7th, which is a Saturday. We're looking at a facilities tour starting at 9 a.m. that would wrap up around noon. They're really interested in seeing the facilities here in the township building here that we're in tonight. They would also like to see our fire service, which is also nearby, the library, which is also just next door, and our arena. So we're just looking to see if we can facilitate that request. Like I said, there are 70 guests that we're hosting here. There will be about perhaps half of them that may join, and the other half might choose to go on another venture to St. Jacobs Farmers Market. So we're just seeking just letting council know that this is a request, and of course we hope that the mayor would be able to join us for those tours, and any other councillors who would be interested. So looking for staff accommodation on a Thanksgiving weekend for the Saturday morning on October 7th to help host our guests and tour some facilities the morning of October 7th. So just seeking council's blessing to move forward with that.
Okay, any comments, questions? Sounds like it's going to be a great weekend when they come, so good. So do you need a motion from council? What do you wish?
I think I am just seeking a motion that we can accommodate that, and that we would have be able to open the facilities. I have spoken to Bill Hunter, and so it sounds like our fire service, they can accommodate. And I believe the library would normally be open at that time. And I did briefly chat with Becky, and I think there's no concerns regarding the arena itself. I think the bigger question is this particular building, is that we wouldn't normally be open on a Saturday, and so just being able to accommodate that request. I know it's not really perhaps much to see, but it is something that the mayor himself, who is young and in his 30s, is very keen to see what all the facilities that we have to offer here. So just looking at this corner of the township to showcase some of those facilities as part of the tour.
I think a brief motion just saying township facilities open during the 9 a.m. to 12 is fine.
Okay, so just have a motion saying that the township facilities could be open on the morning of October the 7th. And Amanda will move that, and Jeremy will second that. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, any other new business? Any announcements? Confirmatory bylaw. That bylaw number 27-2023 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Township of Perth East at its regular meeting held on June 20, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Bob, second by Jeremy. All in favor? Carried. And the final motion of the night is that we adjourn at 9:41. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. A lot going on tonight. Great to see everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.